episode of the Better Two podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and Needom, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. Hi gang, Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better Two podcast. Today's guest is Mark V. Smith. Mark talks to us about his podcast and his future book called The Process. We also talk about the moment that he had to face his father's death and how he had a decision to make, but ultimately the decision was taken out of his hands. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Mark. How are you doing today?
I am fabulous. Trying to stay a little warm here in Maryland area. But how about yourself?
I'm doing good. I realize this is the first episode of the year that I've managed to tape. Usually I had a bunch on the books, but I had internet problems.
Those gremlins, huh?
Yes. So that kind of just took everything to be put on hold. So this makes this episode number 100, actually, that I'm recording.
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored to be that guest on that 100th episode.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to air because of everything being delayed, everything's off as far as timing. So, but there you go, folks. This is the beauty of technology. So, Mark, let's talk a little bit about you. You had an event on a birthday one year that wasn't so good. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, back in 2003, let me give you the backstory. I had a relationship with somebody who was very dear to me, my father. And although growing up as a kid and being an athlete, our relationship was kind of strained because I felt that, again, that, they say that sometimes we get stuck in our own way of thinking. Sometimes we get stuck on stupid. And I was that type of kid. I was very good in sports. I rebelled, so to speak, and didn't really take advantage of a lot of the wisdom that my father was giving me growing up. And so, again, did the transition, went to college, did other things, had my own family, and the relationship that I had, we started to mend because, again, I needed that. There's an old saying that I truly believe in. It says, it takes a man to teach a man to be a man. And I needed that because I had boys as well. So I wanted to be that father. And as a man, we always say that we want to be better than our dads were, So I recall back in 2001, getting a phone call from my father, and he had said, "Mark, I need to tell you something." And yeah, Dad, what's going on? What's up? And he said, I've got cancer. And I've known for quite a while and just didn't want to have this conversation with you, but now it's time for me to have it. So I immediately dropped what I was doing. At that point, I was working for Honda, a manufacturing company. I would always call him periodically during the day just to see what's going on. And he told me that during that conversation. And I remember that whole night on assembly line. I remember driving back home wondering, wow, it's hitting home. You hear about family members and individuals in your life who have cancer or have any type of disease. But, I never thought it would be, my dad. So we go through and we start talking about treatment options. And he goes and decides that he wants to do chemo, which a lot of people do. Chemo was successful to a certain degree. It was prostate cancer to start with. And it was successful for the most part. We were starting to rebuild again the relationship, start to get things in order. And back in 2002, after he went back for his checkup, they noticed a lump or lesion in his chest area. It turned out to be lung cancer. And my father was a former smoker, but he hadn't smoked in over 30 years when this was uncovered. He made a decision to go through a optional surgery process that he was going to happen, and which was fine. But prior to that surgery, he had always, at that point, I had moved to Arizona. So every year for his birthday, he would come to me and celebrate. We would go to Las Vegas. We'd have a good time on his dime. We would have some fun. We'd go gamble. We'd go take in shows. We eat good. We had, really a true experience of a father and a son and a good friend, a true mentor at that point in my life. So I remember October 14th of 2003 was the last time that I actually had an opportunity to have that type of interaction with him. He came to visit me in Arizona. we went to Las Vegas. We got back and he was extremely tired. And I remember him sitting down at the kitchen table one day and he looked at my boys. They were 8 and 9 at that point. And he said, I want you to do me a favor. And they looked at him, they called him Poppy. And they said, yes, Poppy. He said, I want you to always remember, no matter what, you take care of each other. And I thought that was kind of strange hearing that concept or that conversation come from him, because he had never really had an in-depth, heartfelt conversation with them. It was always picking, joking, playing around, but it was something that's serious and that monumental. Well, he returned back to Ohio. And I remember that 2 Sundays after that, 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks, after that, I would call him. Big Cleveland Brown fan he was. I called him that Sunday to talk about the game. And I called and the phone just rang and rang and rang. And that was unusual. I mean, whenever he will always pick up that phone, especially see my number, as well as a Sunday, the Browns. I'm calling to talk about the game. No answer. So I just pick it off and say, well, maybe he's busy or doing something. So I call my mother's phone and I get no answer. So I'm thinking, what is really going on? What's going on? And internally, we all have that internal clock as if something's not right. Yeah. Something is truly not right. So I continue to call. And then maybe about 4 hours later, my mom calls me and says, we're taking your dad to the hospital. He's not feeling well. So we'll just call you when I get there. And still inside my gut, inside my heart, I felt something is more. Something is truly wrong with what's really going on. Well, a couple hours later passed again, and she calls me back. She said he has pneumonia, and they're just going to watch him and monitor him for a little while. So I'm thinking, okay, he's pneumonia. He's going to be okay. Antibiotics, plus some fluids. My dad will be back home. The next morning, I get a call, and she tells me, she said, babe, your dad's not going to do it too well. He's on a ventilator right now. And the doctor's telling us right now that they don't think he's going to make it. So we need to, Mark, I know it's tough. We need to make a decision on what we should do. Mom, what do you mean? What should we do? We're going to give him a fighting chance. She said, the doctor says he's not going to make it. What do you want to do? And I'm an only child. So I had no brothers, no sisters. This was a decision that my mom entrusted in me. And at that time, we're going on almost 20 years ago, I still had a selfish mentality. And my birthday just happened to be on November 19th, a couple of days later. I said, Mom, if we're going to do this, let's do it on the 20th. I want to celebrate my birthday. I want that day to be special and monumental. And she said, okay. So she went back and told the doctors and the nurses, well, my son and I agree, November 20th will be the day that we take him off life support. Well, we all know that there's somebody above us, somebody that's more powerful than us, and somebody who will ultimately make decisions no matter what we do. And, that for me, that is God. And I believe that God made a choice, a decision to not let myself or my mother live with that type of fear of knowing what it was like to basically expire, to terminate my father's life. So 11 o'clock, November 19th, 2003, God took my father home on that ventilator. He passed away. Coincidentally, that is my birthday, November 19th. So for years and years and years, after that happened in 2003, for 8 to 10 years, I struggled. I struggled very, very hard with that day because I felt robbed. I felt cheated. I felt angry, so to speak. Why would this happen? Why would this happen? And I'll never forget, I was driving one day to work down I-95, and just tears just start flowing down my face. Tears. It got so bad, I had to pull over. So when I pulled over, I got out the car and I just turned and looked up into the sky, and it was like an internal message came over to me and said, son, you should be truly, truly happy. You are blessed and highly favored. The day that I gave you life is the day that I took my dad home. God spoke to me that day and said, there's more for you. There's truly more for you. You should embrace this day. And again, that from that point on, I looked at that particular situation in my life as something that to lift me to another level. And I always talk about that now. I always talk about that when I do speeches, when I do motivational talks, about we all will go through walks of changes inside of our lives that are to help build us. And that led to one of the episodes or one of the messages that I wrote, and I called it growth, And I said that stands for gradual reminder, obstacles will test hope. That scenario, that day, changed my perception on what life truly is about.
Well, and I'm going to say this because I have been in that situation twice where I've had to take somebody off life support, and it's not an easy choice. It's not something that, you do question, even though it's the right thing, there's still part of you that questions. Mm-hmm. I had to do it with my grandmother, and I had to do it with my husband. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the hardest things. And like you, with my husband, there was a date, the Friday before he died had been the year before I had a book signing. It was my first book signing at a Barnes, so it was a big deal. And we had this great weekend. So it was like, I didn't want to tarnish that Friday. That was something that was like your birthday. It was something that had a good memory attached to it. So, and besides, his friend couldn't come out that day. So Saturday I went in, I talked to the doctors, really went over everything, looked on the internet, and then made my final choice. Mm-hmm. But it still wasn't an easy thing. And it's something that if he could have been taken naturally, it would have been easier, because ultimately I knew he was already gone, because he had been his brain had been deprived of oxygen for over 30 minutes, between 30 minutes to an hour, because they didn't get him back when they got him in the ambulance at first, and then they lost him again in the ER. So I knew, and I asked them, I said, so is he going to be okay? Well, we don't know. I said, is he going to be okay mentally? Well, we don't know. We have to do tests. And I'm thinking, you can watch, and I mean, TV is TV, and they write things fictionally, but typically when somebody's brain is deprived of oxygen for 15 minutes, they're toast. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But they're like, no, we got to do tests. So in a way, as hard as it is that he died on your birthday, and I know you've made peace with it and everything, it's easier that you didn't have to really fully pull the plug.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I say, and that's what I talk about a lot, is that this was something that was a tough decision. So again, I first and foremost, I'm sorry that you had to make that decision. I really don't know how I would be today if that would have been the case, that I had to do it. And I believe that God saved myself and my mother from having to live with that at that point. And it's still, I miss him to this day, because again, I know he sees the man that I am now, 20 years later, I know he sees that. And it's just, you go through days, you go through times when, especially when I see my kids and I see my grandkids now, and I think about the way that he treated my kids. I think about how I treat them. I see so much of me coming out, and that old saying, you're just like your dad. I see a lot of things that I do and I say are mannerisms that resemble some of the things that are his. A friend of mine, I had did a photo shoot, and a friend of mine, he and I grew up together. He looked at that picture and said, "Man, you look just like your dad." And I just kind of chuckled and laughed. I said, well, I guess I'm doing, something's going right for me today. But again, it's truly something that I deal with. It gets, it's easier now than what it was before, because really and truly, I was in a bad place. I mean, I didn't want to celebrate that day. I went into a terrible state of depression right after that happened. I refused to go back to Columbus, Ohio, even though, and that was tough, because my mom still needed me. She still needed me to be the man now that was her rock, her center. I'll never forget her telling me, because I would call my dad. Like I said, I would call him every day on my break, just to say, hi, how you doing? How you feeling? Everything going okay? How was chemo? What's going on? I remember her telling me at the funeral, now you got to call me every day. Now you got to check on me every day to make sure that I'm okay. So again, you go from the son aspect now to dealing with, now I got somebody else that I got to lift up because they're feeling deprived and feeling sad. So I mean, it's tough. Now, losing a loved one is never easy, for anybody.
No.
It's just, but you also know, again, he was in pain. He was in a lot of pain. One of the things that I didn't mention is he did at one point decide to go in and have the elective surgery for lung cancer. And the doctors opened him up and said there's nothing they could do for him, closed him back up, sent him home. So we knew it was coming. It was just a fact of, when, that day, so, but again, we all are marked with the day. So I'm just blessed now that I'm wiser. I'm blessed to know that I had those years with him. I had an opportunity to mend a lot of things, my own mistakes that I made, and accept some of the things that he did. I had a chance to do that, to put some closure to some things as well. So,
and I think that's important. I mean, a lot of times we don't think about those things. We don't think about, I lost my mom when I was in my 20s. I didn't even think about, well, I should get her health history. You don't think about the technical aspects when somebody dies. You just, okay, now I have to deal with the grief. But there's so many other pieces to that person, especially if they're a parent, that you really need to invest in. And when you're younger, you don't think about it because it's like, well, I'm young. It's not, what does that matter? But it all, now, and this, you're at risk for prostate cancer because it's in the family. And my father-in-law had it and he didn't pass from it. The Lupron shots actually worked for him, but he ultimately died of a heart attack. And like you were saying, the GPS, the day he died, I kept getting a message, call dad. And I'm like, I'll call my dad later. And we get a call later on that evening that my father-in-law had passed. But I looked at him like a dad. So I get that. And I want to say something also about the life support thing. When I took my grandmother off life support, she lasted me a couple of hours. When I took my husband off life support, and somebody always told me he did not want me to be there when he died. I took him off Saturday afternoon and he passed Monday morning. So just because you take somebody off life support doesn't mean it's an instantaneous passing. And I wasn't there. I was, in fact, preemptively, I had taken, because my anxiety level was so high, I woke up that morning and I'm like, I don't feel good. My anxiety is just bad. I'm going to take a Xanax, get a little bit more sleep before I go to the hospital. I took the Xanax. A half hour later, they called me to tell me he passed. And I'm like, if that's not divine intervention, I'm not quite sure what is. So
I tell everybody, I had a recent situation, and I had been having issues with a thyroid problem. So I had sent an endocrinologist. They had seen some of my levels were off the chart. So she suggested I meet and talk with a surgeon regarding for a parathyroid surgery. This was this December, the December that just passed. So I did. I talked to the surgeon. She actually is one of the top surgeons in the country here at MedStar Washington Hospital in downtown Washington, D.C. So she had, when we first met her, she was, of course, very bubbly, very nice. And she looked at my wife and I, she said, let me tell you something. I'm a bulldog. I will find it. No matter where that problem is, that problem thyroid is, I'm going to find it. So, and she really educated me. I didn't know that we have 20 thyroids inside that area, but basically we have 4 major ones in the gland area. And she went through and she said, we identified one that's an issue, but there's another one that we cannot find. So I elected to have the surgery in December 2nd of 2021. What was supposed to be a routine surgery, an hour, 15 minutes in and out. By the time they pull the thyroid, send the pathology, make sure it's benign, nothing's wrong, and get to the problem. They test your levels, make sure your levels are fine, wake you up, boom, you go home. What was supposed to be an hour surgery turned into 4.5 hour surgery for myself. The thyroid that was causing the issue for me was 517 times the normal size of a normal thyroid. Wow. Well, coincidentally about that surgery is my wife was consistently waiting and wanting to know what was going on, and they weren't giving her any update of what was going on. I had they had dressed me in a gown, one of those newfangled gowns that have I call it like a vacuum hose on the side.
Yes, the warmer.
Yeah, so I really like that. Because that was really the second surgery I've ever had in my entire life. The first one was for a knee, in and out. The boom, you're done with it, no problem. So I remember going in the surgery, as I remember looking up at the clock. We're going in the surgery room, and it said 7:30 and 22 seconds. Something happened inside that surgery that later we uncovered that I potentially had the opportunity to cross over. I had the opportunity to sit and have a conversation with my dad and my father-in-law over that period of time. I described the situation as I'm sitting there watching them play checkers. My father was a big checker fan. Her dad was a big checker fan. My dad worked for Anheuser-Busch. He was drinking a Bud Light. Her dad was drinking a Pabst Blue Ribbon. I remember walking to the gate, looking at both of them, and them asking me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm ready to come home." And they said, "No, you can't come home yet. There's more for you to do." And I said, "But I'm tired. I'm ready to come home." Her dad looked at me in the eye, straight face, and said, "You still have to take care of my baby." My dad said, "Mark, there is so much more that you have to give and so much more that you have to say. It's not time." We're still standing there at the gate, my hands on the gate, and they both looked at me again and said, "It's time to go." I recall waking up inside the recovery room. I didn't have that gown on. I had a whole total another gown on. When we read the doctor's report a couple of days later, after I go back for my follow-up, I lost an enormous amount of blood during that surgery. Okay. Nobody talked about it. Nobody brought it to my wife's attention. Nobody brought everything. So those times that I did have that opportunity to have that conversation with him. And mind you, I had never met my father-in-law, ever. I've never met him. I met him that day. I've seen a couple pictures of him, but I had a face-to-face conversation with him and described him to a T to my wife and my mother-in-law. You talk about life-changing events. You talk about having an opportunity to step across, to actually see something that is paramount in your life. That happened. And that was a little over a month ago. And not many people, this is the first time I've actually told this story live. I've told it to my wife, my mother. I haven't had this conversation with my mother. I've told it to a couple close friends. So this is the first time that I unveiled a vision, an actual action that actually seen in my life. And my dad told me simply, "You got more to say. You got more to do. Get out of here."
Well, and that's the thing. We don't all have, we look at life and we just think, oh, we're on this little wheel, we got to keep going, and we don't see a purpose to it. And if you know that you have a purpose, that kind of keeps you motivated and keeps you going. Mm-hmm. Some people, when they've talked about, because I've talked to a couple of friends who they've had either an accident or a surgery, and most of them have said that they have seen themselves on the table or in the car. They've talked about that aspect of it. No one's talked about this, at least to me. And my husband, he had vision problems. And there was one time when it was Halloween night and we were over at a friend's house and we were supposed to be meditating. And he had never met my mother and we weren't dating at the time. And he said, I got my eyes closed. I'm sitting there and he's looking over, not doing what he's supposed to be doing, of course. He's checking me out. And I find out like 6 months later, we're talking because he had told my friend and he saw my mother on top of me. And I had always been told that my mom was always around me. And I was just like, okay, whatever. But he described her to a T. So I went and got a picture of her. And I'm like, is this her? And he goes, yeah, that's exactly who I saw. So, sometimes there's so many things and being in a state when they put you under, especially with the blood loss, your mind is going to be more open to cross over and see those things.
Mm-hmm. It was, my wife asked me, what was it like? And I just said, it was beautiful. It really was beautiful. And the biggest thing that I take away from it is being able to have that I don't want to say that final conversation, but I had another closure conversation.
Yeah.
Being able to see him, to see that he's okay, to be able to have him say some words to me, to have her dad say some words to me as well, excuse me, that are predicated towards her. That was, again, those are huge moments. And I'm finishing up a series right now in my writings in the process called If I Only Knew Then What I Know Now. And you best believe that part of this story is going to come out in one of those episodes here shortly as well, because you have to talk about this. You have to cause awareness to this, that this is real. This does happen. But it's also, again, I look at the bigger picture too. It, like I said before, it has given me another level of closure and another reminder that what I'm doing is the right thing. What I'm having an opportunity to talk to people about in my writings are the right things. Helping lift people up when they think that there is no tomorrow. Helping people understand that they are going to go through trials and tribulations. But guess what? We are 100% capable of getting through it. And if we can have a conversation, guess what? You've already got through it.
Right.
It may not happen the way you wanted it, but guess what? You got through.
Well, and that's the thing.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I just, it just, again, reconfirmation or a reaffirmation that where the path that I'm on, the steps that I'm taking are the right progressionary steps that I should be doing in life is the way it is now.
And I mean, this is the one thing I was going to say. The one thing you have to understand, and I've dealt with, my mother was suicidal and she did complete that. The one thing, and I try to always talk about it, if you're having a bad day, keep going. Things are going to turn around. Yes. But you also, as a person who had survived somebody's death, you have to understand that you can't save everybody either.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because there's a huge amount of guilt attached to that for a long time. If you think, well, I should have been able to save them. No, you can't always do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that goes with everything in life. My full-time job, I'm a facilitator for a nonprofit here in the Baltimore region. And I work with men and women every single day who are reentry, they have been done time from prison, as well as they're getting their life skills back in order. And we do something, and I always tell them, ask them, what are your areas of opportunity? And I said, we're not going to say failures. We're not going to say shortcomings. We're going to say your areas of opportunity, because these are truly areas to where you can grow and you can get better. And I never ask them to do nothing that I don't. And I tell them my biggest area of opportunity is believing that everybody can and will succeed. But ultimately, I know that's not reality. It's a choice. It is a choice. I can give you all the tools. I can give you everything that you need, that I feel that you need, that you tell me that you need. But if you don't apply them within your own life, and you don't make those things happen or make those things work in your life, then it's not going to change. So again, that is something that I continue to, again, a work in progress, right? I continue to struggle with thinking that, okay, everybody is going to get it. Because I always remember something that my dad always told me. He said, Mark, it's not if you get it, it's when you get it. You're going to get it. At some point, you're going to get it. It's not if, it's when you get it. When you apply it and put it into motion, the things that you should be doing, to when everything will slow down for you.
Well, and sometimes we, how do I say this? Somebody can give you the same message. A spouse can give you the same message. A parent can give you the same message. But then if somebody else, a total stranger, gives you that message and it resonates with you, suddenly, like, wait, this is great. And of course, the spouse or the parent goes, I've been telling you that forever. But I mean, people don't understand. Sometimes it has to be somebody that's not close to you, because sometimes that sage advice from the people that love us, we look at it as, are you kind of placating us and trying to soft serve something to us, instead of really listening. And it's the way we're raised, because, going back to what you were saying at the very beginning of the podcast, talking about your relationship with your father, it's like your parents, come on, every teenager does this. Parent says such and such, and you're like, I'm way better than that. I'm not you. I'm going to do better than you. So don't even bother telling me. Yeah. And then you realize, oh, wait, what they said actually had merit. By the time you're in your 20s, you start going, yeah, okay, maybe you're right. But it takes a while to get to that point to hear the message.
That's right. That's right. You hear it, but you don't listen. You truly hear it, but you don't listen. Like I said, that's what I said before. I find myself giving some of the same advice to my kids, and my oldest son is 36. The youngest child that we have is 33, And I'm still finding myself saying some of the things that my father said to me when I was 33. You don't get it. I tell him all the time, you don't get it. You just don't get it. That head still is not hard enough yet. So,
maybe when you think about it, let's roll this back for a second. If you really think about it, isn't it kind of like maybe that's why they put all the adults in the Charlie Brown things sounding like womp, 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 womp. Maybe that's why they did it and we just didn't realize it.
That is true. That is true. But one thing I definitely will take from all of this is the fact that I had an opportunity to, and I don't take it lightly. I had an opportunity to gain a lot of wisdom and knowledge. And if we don't harness that, if we don't utilize that, and if we don't share that gift that we have, then we're doing a disservice to the next generation. So that's why, again, I tell everybody, I enjoy what I do. It took 40 years for me to understand it, a long time, but I enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with these men and women. I enjoy writing. I enjoy speaking. I enjoy the podcast, the TV show. These are things that gives me an opportunity to share something that is deep inside me that has to be told. And I enjoy doing it every single day.
Well, that's the thing. And here, when you look at this, if you go back to being a younger person, you didn't know what your calling was, for one, most likely. And number two, there's all these other parameters that we put in place that, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. We don't look at the bigger picture of what really calls to me and what am I really passionate about? What do I thrive on? And it's not necessarily about ego. It's about, if you're helping somebody and you feel passionate about it, then that's what you need to do.
And you know what? Again, I go back to the old saying in the old adage, we are all called to serve as some way, some form, some fashion. And I believe that what a lot of people get mixed up in is they don't understand that they truly are purpose. The grocery store clerk, the person that is sweeping the gym floor, the man or woman that's serving our kids in the cafeteria, they are purpose. They are truly purpose. They're created uniquely. They're created different. They're created for a specific reason to do what they're doing for a specific opportunity and for a specific time. A lot of people think they get it twisted. I like to say they think it's a platform. It's not a platform. It's who you are. It's because we're all made unique. We all have a mission and we're made for a specific mission. The issue comes a lot of times when people don't slow down. Raising my hand, don't slow down long enough to truly understand what that is. And once you get it, then you utilize it. Because a lot of people get it, but they still don't use it. They're still sitting on the bookshelf, collecting dust. So,
well, and I mean, you and we're basically the same generation from what I'm gathering about your kids' age. And the fact of the matter is, it's like we were taught, you need to go to school. You need to go to college. College education is going to be the most important thing. You need to do that. Okay. And for us, college was still somewhat affordable. But then you continue to perpetuate, and I'm not saying education is a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. But you continue to perpetuate, I can talk, perpetuate this whole idea that you need a college education. Okay, so what about the person that works in the factory? What about the person that does? Why do we paint them in such a negative class when you want somebody to clean that office? You don't want to have to clean your office. You want somebody to clean the bathrooms at the office. You don't want to do it. So why are you looking down on these people that bust their posteriors to be able to do something? I remember when I used to catch the public bus to go to school, and that bus driver knew who I was, and the other riders knew who I was. And we had this mixed bag of people that were in the office, people that were manufacturing workers, but we all knew each other. And I mean, I was a kid then. I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I was catching the bus, and they didn't have a problem with me. They looked out for me. And if I wasn't there, then they were like, so what's been going on? I'm like, well, the bus strike. My mom said no. Okay. So you become a family. And it's like, if we could get past the classism of, well, you shouldn't have, and that ties in with other things, ageism, racism, sexism, all those things tie in together, because I hate to bring this up because I've brought it up many a times, labels. We have this really bad propensity for labels. And it's like, why? We're individuals, as you were saying.
Mhm.
Why do I have to have a label so you can check me off on a census, so you can put me into a category for your analytics? Why?
Mhm. I for 15 years I worked in post-secondary education. The majority of that time I worked for career focus or career accounts or career colleges. So I'm familiar with young men and young women coming to me and wanting a certification as a medical assistant. I'm familiar with young men and young women coming to me and want a drafting, CAD drawing, electricians. I was telling my wife and I were sitting having a conversation uh, 2 years ago, and we were talking about what career paths did not suffer during the pandemic. A plumber still got paid.
Mm-hmm.
An electrician still got paid. These are jobs that you work until you decide you want to retire. Nobody's going to retire you, because guess what? If you're working for a company and the company closed down, or you decide you want you decide you want to go in business by yourself, you always have a job. If you're in telecommunications job, if you're in IT, you're going to have a good opportunity to have a job. So to sit and say that I need to be a doctor, or I need to go to school for psychology, or to say I need to go to school, for this, that, and the other is again, you're absolutely right. You don't need to do that anymore to have a understand your purpose, understand to do something that you truly love to do. So that's something that, again, I hope that other individuals truly recognize and accept right now, other than getting in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And statistically, again, I mean, let's put it out there. Statistically, it's shown that only 30-40% of the people who actually work in the field of which they have a college degree in.
Right.
What does that tell you? What does that really tell you?
And that's something that's been going on for a long time, because back in 1989, I was a receptionist for an insurance company. And the girl who was my second, who was making the files up, she had a college degree. I did not. And I was making more money than she was.
Mm-hmm.
And I know somebody else that had a college degree that was working at Taco Bell. And it was just like, so you went to college for, but granted, I mean, here's the really weird thing about college. I went to college twice. It's not that I didn't go to college. I did go to college, but I ultimately dropped out and didn't get my degree, because one of the reasons why, it's like, why am I taking these extra classes that are not going to be in my field and I'm not going to need them? Oh, well, we need you to be a well-rounded individual. Okay. But if I'm not going to use this, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
And with the internet, I hate to say it, you can be a well-rounded individual all you want. And I'm not saying everything is fact on the internet, but you have the ability now to learn so much more than what we did, beside, with the at-home encyclopedia collection. Mm-hmm. That was outdated by the time it got to us, but
I still have those. I still have those books in the attic.
Okay. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, we had opportunities to learn, but it's like now, and that's the one thing about the pandemic, as much as it's been a curse, you do have people waking up saying, I'm not doing the corporate thing anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to do this on my own. And while is it sustainable that we all try to start our own entrepreneurship? I don't know. But,
the one thing that I will say, and I've been adamant about, and I talk about it a lot, is if an individual didn't come out or doesn't come out of the pandemic better, shame on you. Shame on you, because that leveled the playing field. No more can you say that he or she has this different advantage. We had time to really work on ourselves. We had time to take where we are and really do a self-evaluation to get to and work on getting the things that we needed to get to, because time stood still. You couldn't go any place. Well, you shouldn't have went any place, but you had to spend that time in home doing something that was scary, getting to know who you were, being able to find out what your purpose is and what you needed to do, but more importantly, be able to develop a plan on how to get there. So I do a lot of self-reflection, and I think that really helped me. It helped me. It helped me in my relationships. It helped me with my family, with my kids. I mean, we had they live out of state. We had conversation. Again, you know what I mean? Not the text message, how you doing, what's going on today. We picked up the phone and we had conversation. We did FaceTime. We got to see each other and had conversation again. So, and I always encourage them, what have you read lately? Are you reading something now? Or what are you doing with your life right now? Are you challenging yourself to get better? Because you have this time now. This is not going to be here forever. This was designed to give everybody an opportunity to catch up and get yourself together to get to levels that you want to go. So don't mean it sounds tough, sounds hard, but shame on you. If you didn't do it, shame on you, because you won't. The next time you'll get it, it'll be too late.
Well, I was going to say, for me, the initial pandemic was not, most people had to do lockdown. I had to take my husband to dialysis. So I wasn't forced to be locked down. I had to take him 3 times a week. So I was on the road. And yes, it was like a freaking zombie movie or something, because there wasn't much traffic. And you're just like, okay. But that being said, I did lose him in June of 2020. So the whole grief process, funeral process, and everything else was not the norm. So I had to become very self-reliant. And I mean, I had friends, but still, we didn't have a funeral. And by the time we kind of got out of lockdown, it was almost a year. It was actually over a year. And it was like, I'm not going to go and do a memorial service and reopen that wound. When I decide to release some of his ashes and plant a tree, then I will do something. But I didn't want to go have a party because he wanted an Irish wake. And I feel bad that I didn't do it. But in the same token, it's like, I had to protect myself. So I 2020 and the pandemic was something that it forced me to face me, because suddenly I was in this house with me. I wasn't a caregiver anymore. And that is a major wake-up call. So.
Yeah, it affected everybody and in a totally different way. It set everybody into a tailspin. But we're going to get through it.
Right.
We're going to get through it. It's what's that old word? It's temporary. Right. What we're going through is temporary. The things that we go through in life are temporary. So we'll get through them. 100%. 100%. Our track record is 100% of getting through. May not be the way we want it, but we're going to get through.
Well, and I agree with you about it. It forced us to look at who we are. I mean, that's the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway in this whole thing. We had to not only look at ourselves personally, our families, but at our job life, our work life. How do we change our work life? How do we change our habits of spending? How do we change our grocery buying? Because we're still dealing with shortages. And did you ever think growing up, you heard from your grandparents about food shortages and how, of course, I learned how to make red beans and rice and all these meals that you can freeze and put them away. And thank goodness I did, because now it's like, okay, well, the grocery store shelves aren't always full.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, even today, not today, meaning this time frame, my wife and I, went out a week ago, and we went to get a couple things, and we looked, looking at packages, no packages of chicken. And you go down there, look down there, you're looking for something else. Half the lunch meat is gone. You look at the deli counter, and you see that they may only have 6 or 7 different types of lunch meats or meats that you can have cut, when they used to have a whole case of things. So yeah, it is. It's eye-opening again. Eye-opening again, because we were the type of people that we would go once a month and buy in bulk and then freeze things and not have to worry about it again. But when you go look at some of the things now, it's tough. They don't have it. I mean, they're out of it, and they don't know when it's coming back in. So, which again, it starts back to right before the holidays. They're talking about the supply chain issues. They talked about trucks getting here. I mean, you see, again, another career path that we talked about that you don't have to go to college for. Yeah. They're begging for truck drivers to come move supplies. So it circles back.
Talking to the tech yesterday for the internet, when he came out, he's like, well, because originally somebody came out Thursday, didn't do such a hot job. He's like, oh, that was a subcontractor. He didn't even write his information down, so I don't even know who it was. But so the guy fixed the problem yesterday, but he's telling me how they've lost half their force between 20 and 2021, that they're down tax because they don't have the people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dare I say, it's a blossoming problem.
I guess I always question too is we do know that, and there's no doubt about it, that COVID is real. There's no doubt about it. It has killed millions.
Mm-hmm.
It is it's running rampant. The new variant is just as deadly, if not more than some of the other than Omicron, or excuse me, than the initial one. But I always go back and question, when they gave the additional stimulus money, the extra $600 versus the normal unemployment, did that tarnish the mindset of our workers? Because some people, I mean, realistically, some people were making more money every week than they actually were going to work every day. I know individuals who were making, I mean, the unemployment in the state of Maryland is $440. That's the maximum you can get, $440 a week. You add that extra $600 that the federal government gave, so that's $1,040 every week that some people were making. So our economy or our jobs never really open back up because people aren't willing or don't want to go back to work. Some of them are utilize that money to. I do know a couple who've actually opened their own business. I do know a couple who basically said, I'm going to bank this money because I paid all, I don't need to go back to work because I paid all my bills for 7, 8, 9, 10 months in advance for having this type of money. So when we talk about the jobs that are out there and the contractors and people who don't want to work, I think that had a lot to do with it as well, because now a lot of individuals want something for nothing. I like to say they want something for nothing. They don't want to go back to work because they feel, and I've heard individuals who I facilitate in my group said they're just going to wait around because guess what? They think it's going to happen again. There'll be a new round of funding that comes in, which puts more money back in their pocket. So, I mean, back when I speak for myself, we would jump at an opportunity job like that, period. And because we wanted to work, when we wanted to work, that's what we were conditioned to work. So I don't know if it's going to get better. I don't know if it's going. I don't know if it's going to get worse. The only way that we can actually put this back together in terms of supplies and getting everything back together is if some of these individuals go to work. They take some opportunities and they go back to work.
Well, I mean, we used to have a 24-hour McDonald's here. I haven't been to McDonald's in 2 years, but we had a 24-hour McDonald's. Our McDonald's now, I was coming home one night and they were closed at 7 o'clock because they can't find anybody to work. Mm-hmm. McDonald's is paying $16 an hour here. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, wait a second. So when I started, I was making $3.25. We had one drive-through. We didn't have anything automated. And now everything is basically automated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're getting paid. And I understand, but you got to, okay, let's unpack this though for a second. While they're making $16 an hour, a studio apartment here in a small town is $950. So can you really afford to live off $16.50 an hour working part-time? Because they may not give you a full-time job. Because that's the other caveat to this is, if you can only get a part-time job, which a lot of employers like to do so they don't have to pay benefits, how many part-time jobs do you need and how much of a nightmare is it to try to get these schedules all to mesh? And I'm not defending people for staying off. And some people just can't find a job. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I do know people that have looked and can't find them. But how hard and how stressful is it that nobody wants a full-time job or pay you full-time? We're going to give you part-time jobs, and then you're going to have to play with the schedule between me and the other employer. Yeah. And then you still may not have enough to live off of.
Yeah. I mean, there's examples of all areas of it. There's those that need more because of their structure. There's those that don't want to work, and there's those that are highly, I mean, their specialty or what they've are trained for, they can't find work in that particular area. So I mean, there's each one of those dichotomies that actually work in conjunction with each other. I will just say that again, that there is a especially here in our area, there is a plethora of opportunities for individuals should they decide to do so. And unfortunately, it still leaves a void in the supply chain. It leaves a void in what the stores have. It leaves a void in future retail opportunities and retail sales that are going to happen here.
Well, there is another topic of the pandemic we could talk about too. Besides that, I do want to go back to one thing. There's also the other caveat or category of you're overqualified for the job. But what I was going to say about the pandemic is social skills. Social skills and social graces don't exist anymore because of the internet and having your cell phone, because everybody wants to get Karen on her rant. And I mean, I don't think I've ever seen people just lose it like they do now for no reason.
It's a big business. Reels, TikTok, all of those people are just, they're entertainment buffs, and they want that instant laugh or that instant something that they can gravitate to. I mean, you think about what we've come to right now. We're in squares, right? You're in a square, I'm in a square. 7 years ago, we could be doing this interview face to face. You know what I mean? We could be sitting down having a conversation face to face. I talked with a guy, Jason Todd, not too long ago. He does a show called Coffee with Humans. And we sat and talked about how back in the day, you could tell somebody, like, let's meet at the coffee shop, let's have a cup of coffee, and we just sit and talk. So the social skills are truly, truly diminished at this point. I mean, the understanding and reading the body language, reading the cues, having a good conversation, enjoying the company of anybody. Yeah, it's the pandemic is really shocking. But again, I look at the opposite as well, is that if you have not gotten yourself technology savvy by now, shame on you. Shame on you, because, we teach, one of the things that I teach a lot of interviewing skills via internet, via Zoom, via Microsoft Teams, those types of things. I talk about your background. I talk about what you have on. I talk about how you should position your camera. These are types of things. Again, had we not had the pandemic, a lot of people would have probably just said, man, this guy's crazy. What the hell is he talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's talking about some George Jetson type things, some futuristic things that we may never see. And guess what? It's here right now. So we have to have an opportunity to try to do what we can to kind of bring that connectivity back. Even though we're doing it in this way, we still have to make sure that we're able to get to ramp up those social skills in another way to make sure people are going to be successful. Because again, unfortunately, looks like we're going to be sitting doing this for a little while longer.
Well, it's the whole Andy Warhol thing. Everybody's going to be famous for 15 minutes. And I mean, now you have people that they go out and they act poorly so they can get their 15 minutes of fame. And it's like, do you realize that's going to haunt you? I mean, I
don't think they care.
I got into a conversation with somebody yesterday because they were somebody had shared an article about from John Oates from Hall & Oates, and how that he could not have gotten away with things he did back in the 70s today. And my simple point was to this person that even having a conversation with a celebrity now, people can videotape it and misconstrue it completely. But as late as the 90s, because I had this conversation with a celebrity, nobody even thought about anything. It didn't matter. But I don't think you could do it now without it being misconstrued.
Absolutely. And, I talk about something the very first day is, and I use acronyms a lot, ABR, always be ready, because you're always watched. You're always watched, no matter where you go and what you do. And with the power of that video camera, I got you. I got you. You never know where it might end up. I mean, you're right. I've seen some unbelievably crazy things that people have posted, and unfortunately, I've seen a lot of criminals get caught doing dumb things like that, posting some of the things that they shouldn't have been posting. So, well,
coming back from the insurance background, when they had that whole TikTok trend or whatever trend it was, I don't know if it was even TikTok, it might have been Facebook. Let me get out of my car and dance while it's rolling along. Hello, can I say intentional act? Can I say your policy is going to deny you coverage because of the accident you just got in? But, hey, it was cute, wasn't it?
Yeah. I watched something on TV that made a lot of sense. I talked about it the other day, is that we have to get to the point to where we're dialing back. I believe so many people are so focused on followers, likes, those types of things. The real heroes are the ones that go unsung. The real heroes are the ones that actually get the gratitude from sharing a message and watching lives being changed. And that is so powerful. And I always go back to that, and I always shape that into pretty much everything that I like to talk about. That I don't care if I get 1 like, or I don't care if I get 0 likes. I don't care. That's not even what it's about. It's about whose life can I effectively change every single day. The heck with TikTok, the heck with Facebook, the heck with Instagram, the heck with LinkedIn. The real power comes in, what can we do collectively to help build and change lives? That's where the heroes are won. So,
well, and I mean, talking about podcasting, it's like, somebody's like, well, don't you want to make money off of it? Well, let's be honest, podcasting, there's not a lot of money to be had unless you are a big name, and that's fine. But if you look at the aspect of, look, I got to talk to somebody across the world that I may never have gotten to talk to. I've had this interesting conversation with a topic that I would never have imagined to be able to sit down one-on-one with somebody. Those are the benefits. And then when you actually look at your stats, and maybe they're not the highest stats, but you realize, hey, I have a following in Germany. I have people in Australia looking at it. You have to realize that maybe you've only had, 30 people listen to your show for one episode. You have more on other episodes. Firstly, it's got to grow. Secondly, that's 30 people that heard your message. And that is important. When I started this, you were talking about how you had to kind of lead by example. When I started this, it's like I put myself in the first episode by myself talking about my mom's death. And the fact of the matter was, I knew if I was going to ask you guys to be vulnerable, I had to be vulnerable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think too many people look at being a podcaster as, well, I'm going to dig into your personal stuff, but no, I have to have a conversation. This way I pride myself on the show is I'm going to be as real as you're going to be.
Absolutely. And that's what I write about through the process. I tell my life story. I tell the journeys. I tell the choices and the consequences from those choices, and what it means to understand what you did and what was the benefit. What was your mind at then versus where your mind is at now. Because we all make mistakes. We all go through, I don't say we have problems. I say we have situations. We all go through things inside of our lives that we're not proud of, but we all have the opportunity to grow from that and ensure that we are taking ourselves to another level. And again, I always dial backwards. What can you say to leave somebody bitter or better? What message can you give to somebody who doesn't think that they can make it, but yet and still they can reach down and hear something that you said and resonate? And you brought it up earlier, 6 times, 6 separate ways. What I say you may not get, but what you say, somebody else might get it and say, that's what it means. So that's what it's about. It's about how are we going to work together to change lives.
So talk to me about the process, your podcast. I mean, do you sit down with guests? Do you just do a scripted series? What is it exactly?
It's actually going to be, we're at season 6 of it right now. It started out again with something a little simple as it's just journaling, talking about when I lost my job. I lost my job 7 days before Christmas back in 2018. So I had to go through those 7 stages of grief and losing my job. Anger, frustration, mad, unbelief, all those things were wrapped into it. So I decided that I was going to journal about everything that I had gone through in my life to hopefully help everybody. So it started out with several messages in something called The Foundation. Then I moved to episode 2 or series 2, which was The Perfect Storm, which I released that right as the pandemic hit. Then I put Where Do We Go From Here? And then I wrote about Why Not Me? And I just finished Procrastination, the Thief of Time. And I'm on right now series 6, which is If I Only Knew Then What I Know Now. It will be 10 series, which all will turn into a book. I have a TV show called The Process Live Roundtable, which is every other Wednesday on YouTube, as well as Facebook Live and LinkedIn. And I release my podcast. My podcasts are on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Anchor, and every other Saturday I'm on star107fm.com, where I release a brand new message every other Saturday, 10 a.m. So it's just building and sending a message in so many different ways to help people have an opportunity to listen. And something that you said that is so true is, you're right. We don't make there's no money really right now to be made, but again, it's changing lives. And I hear that all the time. Mark, you said this, by this, using this acronym, that's helped me immensely. And that's how I sleep good at night.
I mean, if you're Joe Rogan, sure, you're making money. If you're a celebrity with a podcast, sure, you're making money. But it's like, if you want your message to get out there, you do it. You just put yourself out there. And an interesting statistic about podcasts, I think there's like 2 million podcasts, but there's only like 500,000 that are active. Mm-hmm. Because most people just kind of go, well, it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be.
No, it's not easy. It's not easy. For those that think it's easy, wake up. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but it's rewarding work. It helps people get to levels and have an opportunity to connect. You're right. You connect and share things that we can help each other grow forward. So.
Right. And I mean, for me, I get to talk to some really fascinating people. I mean, I've talked to a neuroscientist, a Navy SEAL, an actor, singers. I mean, I've run the gamut, and it's kind of interesting because you get to talk to people that you would never think you would. Mm-hmm.
So. That's for sure. So it's rewarding. I spend, again, a good portion of my day. And again, you talk about things that happened during or pluses during the pandemic. My podcast and my writings and the TV show or the TV series, this blossomed after the pandemic, because guess what? It gave me an opportunity to sit down and really get into it versus commuting back and forth to work every day. It gave me that quiet time to come into my office or go downstairs in the gym and have those refreshing moments to have those epiphany of things that, I need to talk about that because this is something that happened, and maybe explain it in this particular way. So it has been a blessing and as well as a curse for a lot of people. But again, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing in my life if I had an opportunity to, because I am where I'm supposed to be at this particular moment.
Isn't that the way life is, though? You know, a blessing and a curse all at the same time.
All at the same time.
It's a lot has to do with your perspective of it.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, Mark, it's been a fascinating conversation. Is there anything that I did not cover with you that you want to add?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything else. I invite everybody to have an opportunity to take a look at the process, listen to the process. It's, again, you can find it under The Process, Mark Smith. You can get on Anchor, Spotify. I have YouTube videos out there, as well as a mini YouTube commercial that's available. But listen to it. And I always believe that it can change. If it doesn't help you, you know somebody that might need that message. You might need to hear or be lifted to get to them to another level. So they always believe that their why is greater than their situation, which is part of their process.
Thank you, Mark, for your message. And thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's been an honor. 100.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So Mark and I went on an incredible journey. We did talk about the pandemic, as you know, and we talked about the challenges that life has. While his experience differs from mine as far as taking someone off life support, it's a choice that I hope none of you ever have to make, because it's a choice that's very hard. And you have to live with the decision. Do I regret my decisions about it? No, I did the right thing for my loved ones. And my husband, well, like I said, he didn't pass right away. So my choice was okay to wait. I think that all of us can learn something from stepping back and taking stock in the things that we've done in our life and look at where we can help others and benefit their lives as well. So I think if you want to learn a little bit more, go check out Mark's podcast, The Process. I think he has some interesting takes on things, and any knowledge we can gain from someone else and help us reframe our thoughts sometimes can benefit us immensely. So on that note, I hope you enjoyed the show. I thank you for tuning in as always. If you want to be a guest on the show or you have a question or comment, please go to Donna at better2podcast.com. That's DAUNA at better2podcast.com. And if you missed an episode and would like to catch up, you can go to www.better2podcast.com. All our social links are there, as well as our Patreon. So if you want to catch up on a show that you missed, please do so. Anyway, take care, and I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whenever you're listening. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye. The Better 2 podcast is mixed, edited, and produced by Rich Zai of Third Ear Audio Productions.